Number one, is this wide receiver core as currently constructed enough? Because the way things are starting to play out right now, the guys who you got in the room, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Noah Brown, the impending return and debut, I should say, of James Washington, among others. You know, is this wide receiver core enough? Because it appears, based on reporting that we have seen from the Dallas Morning News, is David Moore, along with ESPN's Ed Warder, among others, that Odell wouldn't be ready at minimum until mid-January. Now, Josina Anderson reports that Odell Beckham Jr. is confident that he would be available to play in the playoffs if he's able to get with a particular team. So whomever you decide to believe when it comes to the reporting on Odell Beckham Jr., it sounds like he would not be ready at all to play in the regular season. And the biggest hope would be that he would be available by the time you get to the playoffs. How far you go in the playoffs would be also showing what kind of availability that he would have. So with all that being said, is the wide receiver core as currently constructed enough for the Cowboys to make the kind of run that they want to?
Ooh, this is a question that I am really pinging back and forth. That was the moment where I was supposed to just say yes.
Or no.
So, yeah, I was just supposed to say
no
yes.
No fence riding here. Sean's not sitting in the seat. No fence riding today.
I was fence riding when Sean was talking directly to me. I'm not going to stop that. No, but sincerely, right? This is an offense that's very highly regarded, particularly since Dak Prescott has come back. Mm-hmm. One of the best offenses in the league. They're putting up points when necessary. They are quite literally the fourth team in points per game, or tied for third, I should say, in points per game in the NFL this season, and that is including your stint with Cooper Rush, in which you were just doing enough to get by. This is an offense that is putting up points. And in that regard, I think absolutely you look at it. On top of that, something I've been looking at is a conversation we've had over a stretch of weeks and months about CeeDee Lamb and his place as a top tier wide receiver. And if you look at a lot of different things, like yards per reception, and let me see what other things was I looking at earlier. Just a lot of simple metrics to kind of give you an idea. CeeDee Lamb is not far from a lot of the receivers that we look at as those that are the elites in the game right now. You know, like A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and various things. Obviously, he'll sit in different places, but he won't be far away in a lot of these receiving stats, both advanced and kind of simple receiving stats, like yards per reception, yards per target. Like receptions per game, he's actually kind of a little bit lower than some of these guys. So you wonder if you have more receptions, what do those numbers look like as well? So he is starting to develop in his zone. I say all of that to say, very simply, he is starting to develop in his zone as a pseudo one, or maybe even a full-fledged one receiver. And at least when we talk about production. Now, one of the things that I always look at is like ability to bend the defense in the ways in which teams have to respond to that I'm still wondering about. And maybe I'm just slow on the uptake, and he is in fact there. That's something that I knew Odell Beckham Jr. could do. Problem is, if he's not going to play, what you have is what you have. And I think that this team has done a good job of making what they have do what it needs to do. The problem is just playoff situations and seeing that come together into fruition. But they're getting explosive plays. As the texters from 956 also said, they're getting those explosive plays. They're also leaning more heavily on the run, so I don't know how much you in fact need from your wide receivers, like over and above. I think that this is an offense that is doing what it needs to do right now, and if they can continue to walk this line, which was the question last year, if they can continue doing what they already do, they should be pretty good in the playoffs. So yes, this is a team that has enough as currently constituted.
If you had asked me this question about a month ago,
you would have said?
I would have said no.
And why is that?
Because the way that we had seen the slow start for Michael Gallup, now obviously that was to be expected with him coming off of the torn ACL, having that ramp-up period and getting himself back into the kind of physical shape on the football field that would give you confidence that as the season went on, he could be that productive player. Got off to a slow start. CeeDee Lamb didn't get off to a great start, but obviously has come on and emerged, and now playing with more physicality. You saw on Sunday night the ability to break tackles and to finish in the open field. You're starting to see some of the CeeDee Lamb that we saw and that we oohed and awed over when he was at Oklahoma. You're starting to see that emergence of CeeDee Lamb. So with CeeDee Lamb's growth as a number one wide receiver, Michael Gallup's continued progression this year coming off the torn ACL and the production that you're getting from him, and Noah Brown at times, especially early on in the year.
I wouldn't mention Noah Brown third. You know what I would do? Because I understand we're talking about wide receivers, but when we start talking about receiving core, we've got to consider the tight ends factor into this.
Yes.
And with the advanced tight end room that you've gotten, the whack-a-mole bros, you're seeing that those guys can add as well. Now, more early on than I think recently, now that I actually consider it, but those guys can play a factor in. We've seen Dak feather in some fantastic passes to Dalton Schultz. That factors in. Being able to attack the middle and the flats, those guys have helped you quite a bit. So when we can't forget those guys when we have these considerations.
Yeah, and those young tight ends have proven to be very good. This rookie class, especially for the tight ends with Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot, have been very good. You give a lot of credit to Lunda Wells for the work that he's been doing with this group to get them in position to play the way that they have so far this year. And then, you know, James Washington is coming. How much can he help and contribute to you in your last, 5 or so games of the season obviously remains to be seen. But you have enough right now with the combination of your receiving core, your main wide receiver core, and as you mentioned, your pass catchers in terms of your tight ends, with Dak Prescott's aggressiveness and making sure that he's controlling the game by making good decisions and finding these guys in the open field, and more so Kellen Moore being able to see what we saw on Sunday night, which was CeeDee Lamb a lot more in motion, finding more creativity to keep defenses off balance. I think you've got enough here to be able to handle yourself as you get deeper and deeper into the playoffs. Not everybody can have, what you look at in San Francisco with Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, or if you go to Philadelphia with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Yeah, I think the latter more than the first.
Yeah, I'm just saying my point is you've got really good receivers.
But the problem is you start doing that, and we're talking about a lot of teams because you're talking about the Bills where you have Stephon Diggs and to a significantly lesser extent Gabriel Davis, right? You start talking about, Kansas City does not have this in the same way, but obviously we understand what the Dolphins have. We understand the Vikings have Justin Jefferson and to a significantly lesser extent Adam Thielen. We understand, right? Like there's these guys with all of these teams that we consider good, right? That you can look at and you go, oh, well, they've got that, right? They've got a couple of guys that you have to worry about. With the Bengals, you got 2 or 3 guys you have to consider, right?
Yeah.
We have that all the way around, and in the same way, it almost feels like an arms race, but I don't feel bad saying that you have CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, and I think that might be the metric more than anything, and I understand that might feel like disrespect, and I don't intend it as such. I'm just saying that baseline, you have enough to work with.
Yes, you definitely have enough to work with for sure, and as a couple of folks have mentioned so far, trying to incorporate Kevontae Turpin a little bit into the offensive side of the football as well. I don't think you necessarily see that all that much because the times that we've seen that tried, it really hasn't looked very good.
You see my face right now, right?
Yeah,
I know this ain't radio, but look, Kevontae Turpin, in essence, when it comes to your offense, is a gadget guy.
Yeah.
No shame in his game. He's a great return man, and that's what you have him on the roster for. He does not factor in when we're really running routes and trying to affect things on the offense. That's fine. Right, I think that he's capable of holding that role. I think like I said, you have those 2 really strong guys. You have Noah Brown, who is consistently doing enough. Hopefully, James Washington can get integrated and show that he can do similar to Noah Brown, if not a little bit more, and that's a win for you. And then you have the likes of, actually, as we talk about receiving, can I throw in a little X factor within your receiving? His name is Tony Pollard.
It's a great point.
Right? Like when we talk about explosive plays, how many times do you look up and see 20 with the ball in the air, grabbing out of the air and getting a significant amount of yards after catch? That helps as well when we talk about this. The passing game is not exclusive to wide receivers, and I think the Cowboys have done a decent job of utilizing their talent this season, maybe more than others, and that includes Tony Pollard out of the backfield.
This coming from Clarence Hill Jr., the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, per a source, to him, there was a sticking point between the Cowboys and Odell Beckham over whether he would be able to play and get paid this season and the quote-unquote length of the agreement. Beckham wants a deal through 2023. The Cowboys are focused primarily on this year. So basically, it sounds like the Cowboys are, look, you get in here now.
Yes. I mean,
we'll see what it looks like if you're able to play, and then we'll revisit it after this season is over with. And based on, what we're hearing, Odell Beckham Jr.'s knee right now, it's not good.
And it's not close. I
And
think
it's not
that's the
even
thing,
close
right? From the
either,
817, somebody said, the only problem I have is you can't start slow in the playoffs. So you think they think Odell might help stop that from happening. The issue is, one, if you could get him just for the playoffs, there is some needing for integration into the offense, and I don't know how quick or slow that would be, right? That is just a question mark. I'm not trying to imply that it would absolutely be slow. I just don't know exactly what that is, right? Secondly, there's a question mark on if he would be there for the playoffs.
Correct.
And once that's the question, that's tough, right? Stephen Jones, when asked on the KNC Masterpiece on Monday, if whether the idea of signing Odell Beckham Jr. would be more for now or, kind of a combination of now and later. And Stephen Jones pretty flatly said it'd be like it's a consideration for this season. At least that's the way that I read it, correct? And if I'm wrong, I'll be wrong there. But basically, it seems like they want him for now. If they needed to tack on an extra year to make sure that went, that was cool. But the idea of signing for next year is not something that they're excited about. I imagine in part because CeeDee Lamb continues to progress. Michael Gallup, you signed to a long-term deal. Don't forget they drafted Jalen Tolbert. And while he has not been ready to go this year, which, hey, questions, right? Like reasonable questions can be asked.
Disappointment, to be honest with you.
But I don't think that they're ready to throw him overboard. I think that's a guy that they anticipate hopefully coming in and factoring in, right? They have guys that they want to build for the future, and I don't think that they want to clog up their wide receiving room. To respond or regardless of how you feel about that decision, I think that that's something that they want to give them room to develop further, and I think that's a fair situation to have.
And 301 on the TrentRed.com text line. This isn't hoping. I'm just giving you the lay of the land on what this wide receiver room is going to look like without the services of what it appears to be Odell Beckham Jr. Now, can you criticize the organization for not getting something done at the trade deadline? Sure, because Stephen Jones clearly recognized at that time that the wide receiver room was a little bit weak. And since then, you've seen the emergence of Michael Gallup, and obviously with CeeDee Lamb has become as the season has gone on, you feel much better about that wide receiver room. Yes, Odell Beckham Jr., if he's able to play this year, would help you. But it sounds like, number one, he won't be healthy enough to even play this year. And even if he was, you're going to be introducing him so late into the season that it would be very tough on him to try and be a contributing factor given the timeline and how compressed it is that you're trying to get him acclimated to within this team, and you would not have enough time to do that. So while, yes, all of this has come to a head now and what teams are obviously figuring out in terms of what his need looks like, this is not a situation where if you're the Cowboys, and Jerry told me this on Sunday night, that there was no urgency to sign Odell Beckham Jr. until they found out what truly was going on with his knee, and we're starting to get indication of what's actually going on with his knee. And right now, it don't sound like it's good.
I mean, you said it. Just to go back to the text line, 877-881-1053 is the truckwreck.com text line from the 817. They said they meant it slow starts when it came to the Colts game, right, and the Giants game. And I don't know necessarily that. I hear you. You're right on that. I don't know necessarily that is simply a talent issue, right? I think that is more schematics and play calling, right? Like setting up the, what do they call it? The script early in the game.
Yeah, the 15-play script, yeah.
Right. There's some players, coaches do different lengths, but that first script, I think that would be more the criticism there than it would be just the talent. I'm sure additional talent would help, but again, that goes back to what KG was talking about, which is we're not even sure if he would be able to play, to be able to be integrated, to be able to affect that. That's the problem.